Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Post in Black. My name is David Hunter Jr., and I'm so excited to have you with us for a special episode today. Today, we are excited to have none other than Bradinn French with us. Most recently, he worked on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reunion, a favorite of mine. He's worked on Project Runway, The Challenge on MTV, and Bad Girls Club. Bradinn, thank you so much for joining us today for Post in Black.
Thank you very much. Such a pleasure to be here.
No, it's exciting to have you. It's great to have you, man. And before we always jump into the heavy stuff, we like to find out about our guests, a little bit about where they're from. So if you don't mind, we're going to do an icebreaker, and we're going to ask you this question. It's going to come up. Now, if you had to eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
All right. I haven't been asked this one probably since I was a kid, but it's got to be barbecue. It's got to be barbecue, and you gotta include everything with it. I want the ribs. I want the brisket. I want the macaroni. I want the little piece of bread. I want everything. Why give you one little piece of bread with the barbecue?
Like everything else, But you said that with the barbecue, you include all of that. Do you have a particular place that you like to go to for barbecue more than the other?
I tell you, man, I pre-COVID, I actually kind of tracked down the best barbecue places I could find in the whole country. And I went on a whole barbecue expedition. I went to Memphis. I went to Austin, Texas. I went to North Carolina. The only place I didn't get to go was Kansas City. And I hear a lot of good things. So that one's in the future. But my favorite, I think, was Memphis. Memphis has some really incredible barbecue.
What is the difference about the barbecue that makes it seem better than others? You know what I mean? That went from your findings.
Oh gosh. Well, they all had their different specialties, I think. Memphis does ribs, which are probably my favorite. Texas does brisket. North Carolina does kind of like this pulled pork mixture thing, and they all have different bases too, and it all kind of depends on what you're going for, but Memphis is the one that really stuck with me.
This is gonna be a Post in Black / barbecue.
Oh yeah, look, I'm there.
I'm sitting up here right now. My mouth is watering. People, if there's people listening to us on Spotify and on all the appropriate channels, but those of you that are watching can see our reactions. We're getting really excited about this barbecue.
I'm excited. I know what I'm doing after this, actually.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So obviously we find out about the barbecue and your expertise in that field, but can you tell the people a little bit about yourself, like where you're from and what are you doing now?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Madison, Wisconsin, right in the middle of the country. Went to school there as well at the University of Wisconsin, and went to the film program. And in 2008, when I graduated, I came out directly to LA and kind of got right into it.
Wow. Okay. Now you're from Wisconsin and you made a transition to Los Angeles. How was that transition? That's a big
amazing.
Difference, right?
It was amazing. It was amazing.
Did you move in the winter? Did you move in the wintertime?
I moved in the summer, but the winter before I left, it was probably one of the worst winters on record there for years and years, for at least a decade. I remember that winter, I had to, shovel my car out of snow more times than I ever remember doing it. It was just crazy blizzards. I miss my family.
Yeah.
I don't miss nothing about I don't miss nothing about it in the winter, especially right now. I think it's pretty bad right now. So it was an okay transition.
I hear that, man. I'm not originally from LA. I was born in Washington, DC, and my parents are from Philadelphia. And so that's where all of my family is. And so I know about the cold winters. And the thing I tell them, I didn't come to LA for the weather, but being here has made me not think about the weather. And what I mean about that is like I get up and I put on clothes and then I go outside and I'm like, oh, it's a little chilly, but I'm not like, what's it going to be today? That's never right.
Well, what I always say is a lot of times when I was living in Wisconsin, you go on a little trip somewhere, we would go to Florida every now and then or somewhere else. And, you get outside when you arrive at some destination. It's like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then when you leave, it's like, oh man, I'm leaving this. And you, you know, I know when I get home to Wisconsin, it's just gray sky and cold. I'm like, dang. But now when I come home from a flight, it's like, oh yeah, I live here.
Oh yeah. Oh man.
I gotta be worried about nothing.
Oh, we're not tripping at all.
Complain.
Can't complain.
I did it long enough to appreciate it now.
Yeah. I hear that. That's what you say. You appreciate where you come from. Now, you made a transition to Los Angeles, but you studied film in college. Was that the main sole reason that you moved to LA? And what particular area in film were you studying?
It was kind of a big general film. It was film, radio, TV, communication arts. That was the track. And it was very general in terms of, you know, there were film studies, there were production classes, there were editing classes, there were all kinds of things, but there was not really anything you could specialize in outside of, you know, whatever you took interest in. So, you know, my favorite stuff in there was the production classes. I love doing this. And one of the years we had a guest professor, her name was Julie. I can't think of her last name off the top of my head, but she was a documentary editor, and she put on a special editing class that I took maybe my junior year, I want to say. And I was so into it. I didn't know when I left Wisconsin, or even when I got to LA, that I wanted to edit, but I did know how much I loved editing. I thought I was going to be on set. So when I initially got out here, I did a ton of set work. I did a lot of PAing. Well, it was pretty much all PAing, a little bit of like second ADing. But I really kind of gravitated towards post. I mean, I always felt like that's where I had the most fun. So, and that's where I had the most passion. So I just kind of followed that.
Wow. I mean, that's obviously the reason why we have you here as on Post in Black to talk about the post production. But that's a very unique story to kind of say you didn't start out in it, but you gravitated towards it.
Yeah.
That seems like there was a sort of a bug or a passion that you had about it that, you know, I guess my question to you would be, what made it stand out to you more so than the other facets of the industry at the time?
I mean, you know, I could tell that in all kinds of ways. Even when I initially went to college, I went for computer engineering. I didn't even get into film until the second half of my sophomore year. But, you know, I think it really started in kind of high school doing, I don't know how I got away with some of this stuff. I would, instead of writing English papers, I did videos, and I did, I did stuff like that. I even did it for a calculus course. I don't know why they accepted that, but I kind of figured out this theory that some teachers, I mean, they read the same things every day. They grade the same things every day. So I was like, well, let me give it a little bit of a creative twist and give them something a little different and show that I still understand the content. I still understand what they want me to do generally in a paper, but let me present it totally different. And some teachers, I think, appreciate that. Not all of them did, of course, but
I'm with you. You know, my Post in Black was originally started by my brother who really got into post and editing and sound design and all of that. And I came from the side of being an actor and a writer. And my thing in high school was, you know, writing my papers or writing something for English in a funny way. And some of my teachers were like, "You're so creative." And then some of my teachers made me eat lunch by myself. They were like, "You're trying to show me up." And I was like, "Wait, my geometry teacher thought this was hilarious."
You know, you get a mix, but I think it was really there where I developed this, you know, shooting and all that was really fun, but I loved it when I was in the room putting it together. And that carried through from high school into my college courses, where I would love shooting, but I really found myself enjoying those nights where I'd be in a little edit closet, you know, for 10 hours in a day, putting together this story and just configuring different ways to
Yeah.
tell a story. Basically, it really sang to me.
That's fire, and that's a really great connection and kind of visual that you put there. Now you're here, and obviously you're working in production, and then you see that you have that kind of bug for editing, but having a bug for something and getting into it are two different things. What was kind of the doorway or the connection that got you into it to get some jobs working in that field?
It's kind of twofold. So I think the one that really worked out. So the standard kind of one is I came out and I was doing internships, and one of the internships helped connect me with this company, Bradinn Murray, who does a lot of reality TV.
Right.
And so I started logging for Bradinn Murray on the Real World. I think it was the Real World Brooklyn.
Okay.
But the other side of it that I think really kind of swung me was also almost at the same time when I initially came in and I was doing a lot of those PA gigs, because I wasn't quite sure where I wanted to wedge myself. I was talking to one of the first ADs about it was a Disney shoot. It was some kind of Disney commercial. And he was the only brother on the set. It was just him. And so, we, naturally we kind of gravitated towards each other. And he would, his name was Austin Daver, and he's still a great friend of mine. And he asked me what I wanted to do and what I was here for and everything. And we got to talking, and, I told him, I came out to make movies, but I do find that I really love the editing part. And he said, well, I'm shooting a short in 2-3 weeks. I have an editor, but I'm willing to let you take a stab at it just so I can see what you're capable of, because maybe I connect you with some people. And I was like, yeah, put me on that. So we ended up working together on that, and it was cool. I went on set while he was shooting it. I don't know if he ever had somebody else edit it or not, but when I handed it over, he was like, oh yeah, okay, we could work together. And so that turned into a functioning relationship where we kept doing shorts together, and he would, as he AD'd on different sets and also did production management on different sets, he would, toss my name in the hat a little bit. And on one of those occasions, he was doing like a kind of a pitch documentary for Bill Duke, the actor and director.
Amazing.
And so I started cutting things for Bill Duke, and it really kind of took off from there. So I was doing my day job at this company, logging, but on the side I was cutting shorts and little documentary shorts and just kind of building my resume there.
That's awesome. And it's usually it's a common theme in our episodes when we talk to so many different people working in Post and Black, that it's one other person. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh yeah, it was a group, but it's like, oh man,
absolutely,
this brother, is this only other person?
Absolutely.
And so that connection. And then if people don't know who Bill Duke is, IMDb, look him up, Wikipedia, one of a legend,
a big player.
A big player. Very, very helpful and very giving in general.
He's amazing and does a lot of stuff for Black students.
Exactly. So now you have that relationship with Bill Duke, and you're doing some of this, and I would imagine some of the jobs are picking up and gaining in content. Is your name getting out there more? Are you still finding?
Oh yeah.
Like how is that working?
I think once I connected with Bill Duke, there was a new, a legitimacy, if you want to say that. Yeah. And he started introducing me to his other filmmaking friends. And one of the things that actually happened is he and another director, Chan Barry, they had been talking, I guess, for a while about doing a documentary called Dark Girls. And at the time, it was just supposed to be a sizzle. They had shot a few interviews with friends on like handy cams, and they just gave me a ton of footage. They gave me like 50 hours of footage of just them kind of going place to place and interviewing people. And they just wanted me to put together like a 10-minute sizzle. And so I put it together over the course of a few weeks, and it ended up getting a ton of traction. put it out on social media. This was 2010, I want to say, maybe 2011.
Mm-hmm.
And we put it out on social media, and it blew up. It essentially went viral, which none of us expected. And we were just getting calls left and right. And we had actually gotten a call from the head of the Toronto International Film Fest, who was like, he called Bill directly, and he was like, I want to premiere this at the film fest. We're like, okay, that's excellent. Now we got to make a movie, because we got to make a movie. Yeah. So we scrambled and we did it, and it was I think it did a lot of the things we wanted it to do, and had a lot of conversations that we wanted to have. And I think from that point on, I became a little bit more of a serious documentary editor, while at the same time working my way up in the reality ranks over at Bune and Murray, until I became an editor there as well. And so these things kind of coincided.
No, can you talk about that? Because that first of all, that story is just powerful, and how when you do the work, it's also inspiration. When you do the work, and you set out, you guys weren't setting out to do anything like, oh, this is going to be an Oscar-winning film. This is going to be, you set out, we want to tell this story, we want to make a good project, and it got the recommendation. That's encouragement to others. Yeah. But for you, can you explain the difference? Because you're doing documentary, you're doing reality, and you were doing scripted. What's the difference in terms of editing and the kind of hats that you have to put on to do all three?
Yeah, they're all really different animals. And, right now I'm doing American Horror Story, so I'm in the scripted lane now. Yeah. So it is very different hats. And they're all connected in the way that they're all, I think if as an editor, you see editing as storytelling, and that's your primary drive, then, you're already doing well in the game, and you can kind of go between these different mediums, but they all have totally different demands. They have totally different audiences and totally different approaches. And, I think it's a little easier to put scripted and kind of doc reality in very different categories. I've been telling people, I think it's all making art, but it's different types of art. And I think of scripted as painting. You have this canvas, and you're painting whatever it is you're painting. But it's a very creative, very careful thing that you're laying this story out on canvas, and you're depicting the emotion, you're depicting the way the audience is going to consume that story. I think of doc and reality more as sculpting, where you get this big giant hunk of clay that's all this footage, 50 hours of footage, 300 hours of footage, and you're chiseling it into this form that people can see and then take from it whatever they're going to take. But in terms of doc and reality, I mean, even those are different too, because they're serving two completely different functions. And I think my heart has always been in documentary, because I don't know of a better way to get people to focus in on a subject, like really lock into it, and then talk about it afterwards. I think doc is such a powerful medium that I think is hard to. I mean, that's why they're getting so popular in the last few years, is because even more, it's such a good way to reach people, and people talk about them afterwards. People, it's
such a connection, not to cut you off, sorry, but it's such a connection that you have as an audience. Like, I could go into it not knowing anything about the subject matter, and watch the doc and say, man, I want to learn more about that. You know what I mean? Like, it's something that's empowering.
Absolutely. People get connected with them. I mean, I think that's what I'm most proud of with Dark Girls, is it created this, it helped to create another lane for us to talk about colorism in the Black community. And it's a very, very delicate topic.
It is.
I think with documentary, unlike with reading it, if you can see these women who are affected by these things actually speak about it, and you see their face, you hear their emotion, it just connects on a different level than just reading it or just, the stories from friends and friends.
Right.
It really connects. And then, reality can go any which way, but a lot of times reality is for fun and for consumption, and the approach there is totally different, and the networks are totally different. So you really wear a different hat on all of them.
There's so many different hats you touched on, and it's a really grand landscape of things. And so somebody coming into it not knowing anything about the post-production world or knowing the differences, it's really a lot to dive into. And I think it's exciting, and it's something because it's like, hey, there's room for me. There's many different options I can go. I want to talk about, because you talked about having that Bill Duke connection, and obviously you've been in this game for many years now. You're working on American Horror Story now, but a show that you did, which pretty much, everybody is probably still talking about, maybe watching over and over. You most recently edited the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reunion.
Yeah.
How was it being asked to get that? How did that project come about for you to get that gig? And then how was it working on something that's such a classic that means so much to so many people?
Yeah, that was really exciting. That was very exciting. It came about essentially the same way everything comes about. It was through networks, through people I've worked with before that reached out to me and said, hey, we are looking for, on that one, it was a producer who had reached out to me that I'd worked with years prior, and they were looking for editors and just wondered if I was interested in it. And, at this point, I think networks are so critical in post. I think any production related thing, it's people look to not only what have you done before, but what have you done with them, and can they trust you to get it done? Because everything just moves so quickly, and you really got to trust people. And so this was a producer So this is a producer who trusted me and reached out to me and asked if I was interested. I said, yeah, I'm interested.
I was like, was it a lot of pulling that they have to do to get you? Because I would imagine
it was a little bit. Yeah.
They would have asked me, I would have been like, yes, but it was a little pulling.
It was a little pulling because I had never worked with the director before. I had only worked with that producer. So she was vouching for me alone. But yeah, when I came in, it was, I don't even have words for how amazing it was to see the set, to see them come back together. This was so much of my childhood and so much of everybody's childhood. Yeah. So the pressure was on too, because it was like, we got to do well at this. We can't drop the ball on this thing that everybody watched and remembers and has like meaningful memories of. Right. So, fortunately that cast, they don't need a lot of work. They're fantastic together. They could have aired that show just straight up what they shot, put it on TV, and it would have been wildly entertaining. So I was very fortunate to work on that.
No, that's great. And you talk about something too, like it's great to get the editing job and to get recommended for something, but then what comes with that is pressure. So the bigger the job, the more pressure. Yeah. So now it's like, you're not just editing, no disrespect, you're not editing somebody's short film anymore.
Right.
You're editing, with Will Smith. And do you have to interact with Will? Is he coming to check out the dailies and saying, nah, I don't like that, or change that? How is that working?
Well, since it was COVID, we weren't in the office. It was all from home. So I think where normally we would have had that kind of interaction, it was limited to, email, Zoom sessions, stuff like that. But yeah, just like you said, the pressure is tremendous. There's a huge difference between somebody's family and friends watching something and, potentially millions of people watching something. Right. And not only just watching it for entertainment, but, also looking to reconnect with parts of their own past and stories that might be interlinked. Even my wife has these memories of Fresh Prince that are linked with her own personal memories, and I think that's the story of a lot of people. So you have the pressure of making sure that you're correctly paying homage to that stuff and doing it respectfully.
That's big. I want to kind of go pivot from that to you talking about pressure. How is it for a Black man working in this industry? Because the jobs that you may get may come from other people who look like you, but is there a respect factor that you feel is equal between other races, or how was it navigating the space now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's, here's what I'll say. I think it's a lot easier navigating this industry as a Black man than it is as a Black woman. Just all my conversations with Black women who edit, they have so many extra layers that they got to deal with that I don't. And do
they share any of those with you? What are some of those like?
Oh, absolutely. I think they come in all kinds of forms. The one I usually tell people about is, if I have a creative disagreement with a director or producer, I can say it. I can talk about it. We can argue about it.
Yeah.
A Black woman does not get that luxury in many cases. In many cases I've seen, they get the difficult label as soon as there's a disagreement. And in this field, there are going to be disagreements. There are a lot of politics. There's a lot of, ego, and people. We're all trying to tell a story, but there's no one way to tell a story. And so I've seen it where Black female editors have, the regular standard disagreements, but they get the label that they're difficult to work with, or that they're not a team player, or, this and that. And it comes down to pay too, like where it's a lot more difficult to ask for a fair rate. Because if you get labeled, mad Black woman or anything, you're out. And so I think as a Black man, and as a light-skinned Black man, it's difficult in that none of us are represented on these edit teams. I've been on 20-person edit teams where I'm the only person of color on there. I'm one of two. And that's not weird to anybody, but like when we did R. Kelly and there was 5 of us, that was weird to everybody. Everybody's like, why are you hiring all these Black people? It's like the difference is crazy.
It's crazy, even as a filmmaker, creative actor, when you're in a project and you see it, there's 2 actors in a high profile a film, and there's 2 Black people. It's like, okay. That's our 2, and then you got like the waiter. But if it's like 3 main leads is Black, it's like, oh, that's a Black movie, and it's credited automatically. There's no validation that's given, and it's crazy to see that it's not just in front of the camera; it's behind the scenes too.
It's behind. It's everywhere. Yeah, it's everywhere.
Before we let you go, I would ask to this question: what would you feel like are still some of the changes that need to happen in the post-production industry to continue to move things forward?
I think the biggest thing I talked about a little earlier. I think the biggest thing is networks. Networks get you everywhere. It's like you said, that one person can get you everywhere you're going. I can link my entire career to one person who. If I didn't meet him, I don't even know if I'd be an editor. I mean, I think I would, but I don't know which job I'd get here and there. And I think that's how it works in so many facets, where if you don't get in these doors, it took forever to get into some of the doors I got in that I would have gotten in, I'm sure, if I was in the regular white boys club where they introduce everybody and you're coming to the functions. But if you never get your face seen in the door and you never have those conversations with producers and executives, you're not going to get those jobs. Right. And so I think the biggest thing that we can and should do, and that I think we're starting to do, especially this year, but we need to keep pushing it, is to bring people with us whenever we get in those doors, and make sure they're getting the FaceTime with the people who hire and the people who make the producers, the people who make those decisions. If you get into a door, you got to bring the next person with you, and you got to get them in front of people. And so I think the change is going to be how we're networking. I think that's where it's going to, where the fight is going to be at.
No, that's Well said, and I agree with you totally. So, I'm gonna let you drop the mic. I don't need to get another mic. You know what I mean? You say a great point. I'm gonna leave it there. Brady, this has been amazing. I really appreciate you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Where can the people find you and stay in tap with you? And then what do you have that you're working on that people should be on the lookout for?
Okay, so I'm on Instagram. I'm Bradinn _. I'm on Twitter. I'm just Bradinn, I think, on there. I can use my name for things. That's kind of a fun feature of my name.
All tweets.
Yeah, like I said, I'm working on an American Horror Story right now. That's real fun. I also just worked on a doc about Ferguson that's coming out, I believe, in the summer. Okay. And yeah, look out for both. I got a movie coming out with. I got a bunch of stuff on deck. But
we're gonna stay tapped in with you, and we truly appreciate. I think some people are going to be impacted by this episode for sure. So thank you again.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. So.
Not a problem. Thank you all again for tuning in to another episode of Post in Black. Make sure you subscribe, like us on YouTube, Facebook, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and stay up to date with everything that's going on with Post in Black.